Did you know that in 2024, over 1 in 4 Australian families reported skipping meals just to pay the bills? Or that rent prices in major cities have jumped over 20%, pushing full-time workers into tents, caravans, or even their cars? The cost of living crisis isn't just numbers on a chart. It's turning daily life into a survival game for millions of Aussies. You might think, surely things can't be that bad? But they are, and it's getting worse. Families are cutting back on essentials. Parents are working double shifts while barely keeping up. And children are growing up in homes filled with stress and uncertainty. Inflation isn't just about rising prices. It's about crushed dreams, delayed futures, and broken spirits. And yet, most people don't realize the true reasons behind this crisis. In this video, we're diving deep into the 10 most shocking reasons why inflation is silently destroying Australian families. Some of them will surprise you, others will anger you, but all of them are real, and they need to be talked about. Number 1. Soaring grocery prices. Let's start with something every family feels: the pain at the supermarket checkout. What used to cost $100 a week now pushes past $150, and that's just the basics. In fact, data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that food and non-alcoholic beverage prices rose by over 8% in the past year alone. And it's not just fancy items. Staples like bread, milk, eggs, and vegetables have all seen sharp price hikes. Families are now being forced to make heartbreaking choices: buy less food or settle for lower quality, processed items that offer poor nutrition. This rising cost isn't just about inflation in a vacuum. It's tied to supply chain disruptions, extreme weather events affecting crops, and global economic pressures. When you add it all up, it means that putting dinner on the table is becoming a luxury for many Australians. A growing number of parents admit they're skipping meals so their children can eat, while others rely on food banks that are now stretched thinner than ever. It's not just about food, it's about dignity. It's about a mother feeling ashamed because she can't afford her child's favorite cereal. It's about the silent stress of counting every cent in your cart and praying the card doesn't get declined. Grocery shopping used to be a routine task. Now, for many families, it's a source of weekly anxiety and emotional strain. And sadly, this is only the first of many ways inflation is bleeding Australian households dry. Number 2. Skyrocketing rent and mortgage costs. If groceries are draining wallets, housing costs are demolishing them. Across Australia, rents are reaching historic highs, with some suburbs in Sydney and Melbourne seeing increases of over 30% in just 2 years. And it's not just renters feeling the pressure. Mortgage holders are facing their own nightmare, with interest rates climbing rapidly, turning once manageable loans into financial time bombs. Imagine this: a family that bought their home 5 years ago on a fixed-rate mortgage suddenly faces a $1,200 increase in monthly repayments once that rate expires. For many, it's not a minor bump, it's a financial gut punch. They're dipping into savings, slashing budgets, or worse, falling behind on payments. Some are even forced to sell their homes, not because they want to, but because they simply can't keep up anymore. For renters, the crisis is even more brutal. Vacancies are at record lows, giving landlords the upper hand. That means bidding wars for rental properties, families sleeping in motels, or people crowding into single bedrooms just to survive. There are growing reports of full-time workers living in their cars, juggling jobs, and school runs with no fixed address. This isn't just housing stress, it's housing desperation. At the heart of it all is a simple truth: everyone needs a roof over their head. But with rising costs and stagnant wages, that basic human right is slipping further out of reach for thousands of Australians. And with inflation still climbing, there's no relief in sight. Number 3. Childcare expenses becoming unmanageable. For many Australian families, childcare is no longer a support system. It's a financial trap. The average cost of full-time childcare in major cities now sits at over $120 per day per child. That means if you've got 2 kids in care, you're looking at upwards of $2,000 a month just so you can go to work. It's no wonder thousands of parents are starting to ask themselves, is it even worth working anymore? Australia ranks among the most expensive countries in the world for childcare, according to the OECD. And while government subsidies do exist, they often fall short, especially for middle-income families who earn just a little too much to qualify for full assistance. This creates a cruel paradox where parents are punished for trying to do better. As inflation drives up prices, many mums and dads are now making the impossible choice: stay in the workforce and struggle financially, or leave work entirely and lose income, career progress, and stability. But the issue goes deeper than money. Unmanageable childcare costs impact children's development too. When families pull their kids out of quality care due to price, they often turn to less consistent or unregulated options, which can affect early learning and social growth. It also puts enormous pressure on extended family members, like grandparents, who may be forced into full-time caregiving roles well into retirement age. The system is broken, and families are paying the price, not just in dollars, but in opportunity, well-being, and peace of mind. Number 4. Utility bills are out of control. Imagine coming home after a long day, only to worry whether turning on the heater or running a hot shower will push your bill over the edge. For many Australians, that's the harsh reality. Electricity and gas prices have surged by more than 14% in a single year, and it's hitting working families the hardest. The rising cost of essential services like heating, water, and electricity is turning everyday comfort into a stressful decision. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Yet more and more families are cutting back on heating during winter, cooking less to save on power, or limiting showers to a few minutes a day. It's not about being frugal anymore. It's about survival. Energy retailers are also increasing supply charges and daily service fees, meaning you're paying more before you even use a single kilowatt. To make things worse, government rebates and energy relief packages are often complicated, limited, or simply not enough. Vulnerable Australians, particularly seniors and low-income households, are choosing between staying warm and staying fed. Some families are using candles instead of lights, or gathering in a single room to conserve energy, a heartbreaking image in one of the world's wealthiest nations. The mental strain of watching the meter tick while worrying about the next bill cannot be overstated. It's constant, it's exhausting, and it's unfair. In a country as developed as Australia, no one should have to live like this. But for millions, this is the new normal, and there's no sign of relief on the horizon. Number 5. Wages aren't keeping up. Here's the cruel twist in Australia's inflation crisis. You might be earning more on paper, but in real life, you're poorer than ever. While prices skyrocket across every sector, wage growth is crawling at a snail's pace. According to the ABS, real wages, what your income can actually buy, have been declining steadily, leaving families worse off despite working longer hours or picking up second jobs. The disconnect is staggering. A full-time worker who got a small raise last year likely saw that increase wiped out by rising grocery bills, rent hikes, or fuel costs. Even professionals and tradespeople, once considered financially secure, are now feeling the pinch. It's no longer just about the low-income bracket. The middle class is being pulled into survival mode. And the emotional impact is devastating. People are working harder than ever, sacrificing time with family, juggling side hustles, and still barely breaking even. The dream of financial stability is slipping through their fingers. And it's not because they're irresponsible, it's because the system simply isn't built to keep up with the pace of inflation. Parents feel guilty, workers feel exhausted, and everyone feels stuck in a loop that seems impossible to escape. In a fair economy, hard work should pay off. But right now, for millions of Australians, It just doesn't. We poured our hearts into this video to give a voice to families who are struggling in silence. So if you felt seen, tell us in the comments what part hit you hardest. And if you want more honest, powerful content like this, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 6, transportation and fuel costs. It's something we all rely on, but rarely think about until the cost becomes unbearable. Whether you're driving to work, dropping kids off at school, or doing the weekly shop, transportation is no longer just a convenience. It's a financial burden. In the last year alone, fuel prices have spiked dramatically, with petrol climbing over $2 per litre in many areas. For families with long commutes or multiple drop-offs, that adds up fast. And it's not just fuel. Public transport fares are rising too, making it harder for people without cars to move around affordably. Buses, trains, and even rideshare apps are becoming less accessible, especially for those in outer suburbs or rural areas. For many Australians, the cost of getting to work is starting to cancel out the benefit of working at all. The impact goes deeper than missed appointments or skipped errands. Some families are now delaying medical visits, cancelling job interviews, or keeping kids home from extracurriculars because they simply can't afford the fuel. It chips away at quality of life, freedom, and dignity. Imagine having to choose between filling your tank or filling your fridge. That's now a weekly reality for many. And with global oil markets remaining unstable and no major relief in sight, there's no telling how much worse it could get. When something as basic as getting from point A to B becomes a luxury, it's clear. The system is broken, and ordinary Australians are the ones paying the price. Number 7, debt is spiraling. For many Australian families, debt has gone from a backup plan to a way of life. With rising prices and stagnant wages, more people are turning to credit cards, personal loans, and buy now, pay later services just to cover everyday expenses. But what starts as a short-term solution quickly turns into a long-term trap. Right now, Australia has one of the highest household debt levels in the world, and it's climbing fast. What makes this even scarier is that most of this debt isn't from reckless spending. It's not luxury cars or overseas holidays. It's groceries, rent, school uniforms, basic living. Families are borrowing not to get ahead, but simply to stay afloat. And with interest rates rising, those debts are becoming more expensive by the day, creating a vicious cycle of borrowing more just to cover the last loan. Credit stress is no longer just a financial issue. It's a mental and emotional time bomb. Families are living with constant anxiety, watching the bills pile up and wondering which one they can afford to ignore this month. Some are falling into default, facing collection agencies, or even declaring bankruptcy. Others keep it all hidden, silently drowning in debt while trying to maintain a normal life on the surface. This is not sustainable. And worse, it's becoming the norm. Debt should be a tool, not a trap. But for millions of Aussies, it now feels like a cage they'll never escape from. Number 8, impact on mental health. Inflation doesn't just hit your wallet. It attacks your mind, emotions, and overall well-being. The relentless pressure of making ends meet has triggered a silent mental health crisis across Australia. According to Beyond Blue, calls to mental health hotlines have surged, especially among parents, low-income workers, and young adults. The cost of living isn't just making life harder, it's making it mentally unbearable. Imagine waking up every day wondering how to stretch your paycheck to cover food, bills, and rent. Then imagine doing that for months, sometimes years, without relief. That kind of chronic stress leads to anxiety, depression, burnout, and even substance abuse. For many, the emotional toll of not being able to provide for their family is heavier than the financial one. It's the feeling of failure, shame, and hopelessness, even when you're working your hardest. And let's not forget the children. Kids absorb their parents' stress. They see the tension, the late-night arguments about bills, the skipped outings. Over time, this shapes how they view the world. They grow up faster, worry earlier, and carry burdens they shouldn't have to. The long-term psychological effects could echo across a generation. Yet mental health support remains underfunded and stretched thin, especially in regional and low-income communities. Even those who want help often face long waits or high costs. In a time where people need support more than ever, many are left to suffer in silence because the system simply can't keep up. Number 9. Government assistance is failing to keep up. When times get tough, government support is supposed to be a safety net. But for many Australians, that net has become so full of holes, it's barely holding anything up. Programs like Centrelink, JobSeeker, and rental assistance were once designed to help people through hard times. Now, they're falling dangerously behind the rising cost of living, leaving vulnerable families stranded. Let's look at the numbers. The base JobSeeker payment is around $55 a day, far below what's needed to cover even basic expenses like food and rent. And while some temporary boosts were offered during the pandemic, many of those lifelines have since been pulled away. Meanwhile, inflation continues to surge ahead, making these payments feel more like a token gesture than real help. Even those who qualify for assistance often face endless paperwork, long delays, and confusing eligibility criteria. Many give up entirely out of frustration, while others simply don't meet the strict thresholds, even if they're clearly struggling. The result? People fall through the cracks, relying on food banks, charities, and informal support networks just to survive. And let's be clear, this isn't just about unemployed Australians. Even full-time workers are now turning to government aid because their wages can't keep up with rising costs. That alone should be a wake-up call. A support system that can't support the very people it was built to protect? That's not just broken, it's dangerous. Number 10. Long-term dreams are dying. Inflation doesn't just impact the present, it's quietly stealing the future. For many Australians, long-term dreams like owning a home, starting a family, building a business, or retiring comfortably are slipping further and further out of reach. These aren't wild ambitions. They're basic life goals that used to be achievable through hard work and careful planning. Now, they feel more like fantasy. Young adults are delaying marriage, skipping higher education, and giving up on buying property altogether. First-home buyers are priced out of the market even after years of saving. Couples who plan to start a family are waiting indefinitely, not because they want to, but because they simply can't afford another mouth to feed. And retirees? Many are being forced back into the workforce, not to stay busy, but to stay alive. What makes this even more heartbreaking is the psychological weight of dreams deferred. These aren't just financial losses, they're emotional ones. It's the crushing feeling of watching your future shrink because everything costs more, but you're not earning more. It's the hopelessness of realizing that no matter how disciplined you are, the system is rigged against you. This is the long-term damage inflation is causing, not just hardship today, but the slow erosion of hope, ambition, and joy. And if this trend continues, we won't just lose comfort. We'll lose generations of potential, creativity, and stability. So now you've seen it. 10 powerful reasons why inflation is not just hurting, but devastating Australian families. This crisis isn't about statistics or charts. It's about real people, parents, children, workers, students who are doing everything right and still falling behind. It's about families choosing between rent and food, about dreams delayed indefinitely, and a nation slowly being weighed down by a system that no longer works for its people. What's even more alarming is that many of these issues aren't making headlines. They're being lived out quietly in kitchens, bedrooms, and driveways across the country. And unless something changes soon, this silent struggle could turn into a national emergency. But awareness is the first step toward action. The more we understand what's really happening and talk about it, the harder it becomes to ignore. So don't stop here. Start the conversation in your home, in your community, and right here in the comments. Because these aren't just financial problems, they're human problems, and it's time we treated them that way.